Welcome to CARICOMP Insider, where high-tech facial recognition meets real-world intelligence.
The next time you're at airport security, the officer waves you toward a camera. You step up. It scans your face. What almost nobody tells you, you could have said no. In tests, only about 1 in 100 travelers was told out loud that the face scan was optional. So the scan is voluntary. Legally, you can refuse it. No penalty, no delay. But if the officer never says a word about it, is it really a choice? If you've ever flown, or you're planning to this year, this is about you, your face, at the checkpoint, in a government system. Facial recognition is now running at more than 65 U.S. airports, and another program runs by default at over 350 airports. No sign-up, no prompt, no warning. The question threading through this whole episode: what does optional mean when almost no one knows the option exists? Start with that 1 in 100 number. Privacy researchers watched how the checkpoints actually work. On paper, TSA says you can decline. In practice, almost no traveler hears that from the officer standing in front of them. That gap is the whole story. A right you don't know you have isn't really a right you can use. For most people, the scan just happens. You look at the camera because that's what the line is doing. Now, even a federal watchdog raised a hand here. In 2025, the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board told TSA to do better. They said the agency needs clearer signs, better trained staff, an honest check on whether officers are actually telling people about the opt-out. When a government privacy board says your transparency isn't good enough, that tells you something about the gap between the policy and the checkpoint. There's also a fairness problem baked into the technology itself. Back in 2019, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a federal lab that tests this stuff, ran the numbers. They found these algorithms misidentify people at different rates. False matches showed up more often for Asian and African American faces than for white faces. So think about who bears the cost when the machine gets it wrong. If the scan fails you more often, is optional the same choice for you as for the person behind you? And here's where the word optional starts to wobble. TSA Administrator David Pekoski has laid out a plan to eventually require biometrics to fly. Required, not optional. So today's voluntary scan may just be the warm-up act. The infrastructure gets built now. The mandate comes later. To be fair, TSA's answer is simple. They say declining causes no delay and no penalty. And they say your photo isn't stored after a successful match, except in limited testing. The camera confirms you match your ID, then lets the image go. That's a real function, and the deletion matters. But look at what the numbers actually say. The problem was never whether you can opt out. You can. The problem is that a choice nobody tells you about works exactly like no choice at all. A system that's optional on paper and automatic in the line is, for most travelers, just mandatory with extra steps. So here's the whole thing. The airport face scan is legally your choice, but almost no one gets told that, so almost everyone just does it. And the head of TSA wants to make it required down the road anyway. You don't have to be a privacy expert to use this. Next time you fly, you can say, "I'd like to opt out," and by law, you keep your place in line. That's the difference between a right that exists and a right you can actually use. The full breakdown's in the show notes if you want the deep dive.
Now you know something most people in this industry don't. Use it. And when you're ready to put it to work, caricomp.com. We'll see you tomorrow.